that game, but it happens. I'm gonna go ahead and do my patch 7.3 rundown that I do every single patch. I'm excited about this patch for a couple reasons. Mainly because I was told that Camille, LeBlanc, and Rengar were gonna get nerfed in this patch. Riot typically takes a couple weeks to nerf these types of champions because they want to see how they play out over time. Unfortunately, for the really huge grinder that most streamers are, I get to sit and see for a month that wow, this champ is just OP, and it's kind of frustrating a little bit when they don't get touched immediately. I can understand why in terms of balance perspective, but as a player perspective, it kind of sucks sometimes. Anyways, this patch will be pretty good. Hopefully, I have high expectations for this patch. I want to see three nerfs that the three champions, and then I'll be excited to see what else they put in here. So, this is the patch where they mostly react to professional play. Oh, it's by Scarra'S. Rest in peace. That's not saying everything is for pros, but a major competitive play. Okay, so this is their competitive change. So I should think of a lot of these changes into how they're gonna work in the competitive scene. Okay, cool. Um, Camille. So obviously this is a huge problematic champion. She's flex pickable into every single role that's not AD. She has won games in the jungle competitively. She's won games as support. She's won games as top and mid lane. So this champ is obviously super overtuned. A lot of it comes down from the fact that Camille has a lot of steroids, both defensive steroids from her ulti, and she has a healing from her W. She has a slow. She has a attack speed steroid, and she does true damage, and she does on hit damage. So she has just a bunch of steroids. Literally, she has too many steroids, and so I think it's fairly relatively simple how the nerf Camille or where her strengths come from, but what the target is the hard part. So what's gonna happen? Um, Her empowered Q damage goes down. Okay. Her sweep now decays to 0 seconds over the duration, and the slow decreases by 10%. I still think that Camille should. A lot of the top laners that are melee, I don't think should be able to start long. Doran's Blade. And Camille is one of the champions that can. And a lot of it is because of the strength of her healing from her W. Allows her to sustain herself from lane. I don't know if there's something that they mean to do. I personally think that's kind of crazy that the sustain from her W allows her to just get away without going what most melee champions have to do, which is corrupting potion. Just something to keep in mind because they didn't nerf any aspect of her healing on the kit. Hookshot mana increase is really good. A lot of people are alternating between maxing Q and maxing Hookshot. Q being better against tanks and Hookshot being better to set up CCs and roam. I like that the stun duration got decreased and the attack speed's only given if it hits an enemy champion. The second thing helps a little bit in terms of nerfing her overall wave clear, but she still goes Tiamat every game. So I think nerfing the actual raw numbers of the attack speed would have been a better approach in this situation, but whatever. Other thing is after death duration no longer persists for a full oh, thank God. It is if you kill Camille right now and you're ultied by her ulti still persists even after she dies. Now it just disappears within 1 second. That's still a decent amount of time, but I think that it's a lot better. Thank God it doesn't persist after death. I don't think it ever should. I'm surprised at her relative lack of nerfs. They didn't tag her passive shielding. They didn't. So for the most part, all of her defensive cooldowns stay the same. Or not cooldowns, but her defensive steroids, both her passive shield and her healing stay the same. And her offensive, steroids, the only thing that got nerfed is really her Q by 20% bonus damage, which isn't that much, to be honest. I would not be surprised to see this champion still picked. I think this champ is still going to be really, really good. And she may drop from permanent ban pick in competitive, but she's still going to be strong. I look at these and I'm just this isn't enough. Because this champ is, you didn't hit the points where she gets so much of her power. Part of the reason why, if she gets shut down, she can always come back because she has so many steroids in her kit. And they didn't touch any of the steroids. So it's well, she's still going to have the same problem that she had before. And it just may be that she has more mana issues in lane, but it doesn't seem like anything really changed in terms of her overall effectiveness. She got there for a little bit. She's still going to get banned a lot, in my opinion. Banned picked. Let's move on. Ivern. He's seen a lot of play recently in Europe and recently in a lot of other regions. Korea, NA picked him up. The champion itself is very strong, partly because you can invade and smite steel camps really, really easy. That's like his forte. What needs to be nerfed, I don't exactly know. I could see like a nerf to his base stats. He may be a little bit too strong, so they can nerf either the non-interaction part of him, which is the smite stealing camps. They can make it longer to channel enemy camps, so it's harder to counter jungle. I think that'd be a good nerf, while still maintaining like the rest of his kit, or they can touch any of his base numbers. So let's see what they end up doing. They removed they removed a lot of the Daisy armor and regeneration. I think the regeneration means a lot because you used to be able to run, get to a fight and then run to like another lane and Daisy would be full health. So I'm glad they removed that because I'm pretty sure Annie Tippers doesn't get that either. So just to be consistent, and especially because Daisy's like a CC machine, I think that's definitely necessary. Okay, so they just nerfed her Daisy. I think with the expected nerfs of both Kha'Zix and Rengar in this patch, Ivern becomes very, very high tier in terms of jungle competitive pick. So I don't think these nerfs are enough to like hit him off like the very top tier, but maybe he is not as good as I expect. So at least it's something, and it's a nerf in the right direction for Ivern. Moving on, Jace. Okay, this champion, so a lot of people ask me, how do you beat Jace top lane? And my personal opinion is that you can't beat Jace top lane. He has no counter pick. And in some situations, that's fine. Because, okay, if he has no counter pick, then he has to take a loss somewhere else. Like, he has to take, he either can't wave clear very well, he can't team fight very well, his split pushing is not very good, he's, like, squishy, just his scaling isn't very good. Like, he has to take the loss somewhere, right? But if you think about it, okay, he wave clears, he split pushes great. The only thing that's bad is he's not tanky. He's a squishy champion. However, he wins every one lane top lane. He can lose lanes after level 6 and if he gets camped to certain champions. However, like pre-6 laning, Jace is monster. And he, to the point where like he's a large counter pick into the current tanks right now. I think that, yeah, nerfing him would be pretty nice. I would expect maybe like a nerf to his base AD would be pretty nice, honestly, so his laning isn't super, super dominant. But I don't know what they're going to go with this. So what did they decide to do? They nerfed his Q base damage. Early, it's not that much, so I don't think it's going to matter. His E Thundering Blow mana cost, that's actually a pretty good nerf because Jace used to be the champion where his early game wasn't that good because he was forced to buy tier. But people realized that like tier was limiting them from going Dirk Rush and just killing everyone. So everyone just skipped tier and uses the mana regen from autoing with W to keep their mana up. I think that if another way to nerf Jace is to just nerf his mana cost so that he's forced to go this tier oriented route so that he doesn't have such a good early game. That's an interesting way that Riot could do it, and it's somewhat going that way in terms of the Thundering Blow nerf. It's a pretty decent nerf right there. I still think they could have nerfed this champion harder. He's still going to see a lot of play. I think the point of nerfs isn't to nerf a champion to where he doesn't exist. But I think that a lot of his like relative raw strength comes from his ranged form. I'm surprised they only really nerfed his melee form in this situation. They also nerfed his hammer stance damage ratio. It's just, I mean, overall, these nerfs are a step in the right direction. Maybe they wanted to be very slow on the nerfs because they're nerfing a lot of other champions. But this is the champion that would be like first in mind if tanks ever get touched. Jace is going to be like a big problem. Okay, moving on. Kha'Zix, this champ is way too good. So I think it's a problem that you evolve W second. I think it should be situational. The fact that it slows for so much, and if they're isolated, slows for even more. I encourage the type of Kha'Zix to go like QE, and where you get a lot of resets, but it's hard to team fight that way. And they'll really choose your timing down. But right now, evolving W second is in every competitive game almost, and you just poke. You're just a poking champion that also CCs because you have a range slow. And if they're isolated, my god, they're gonna get slowed forever. On top of that, the Q cooldown is so insanely low, and it feels like his passive damage is so insanely high that he will win all isolated fights, which it's fine. Okay, he's supposed to win isolated fights, but it also seems that even without this passive CDR on his Q, he still can win non-isolated fights. And I think that that's wrong. Like, this champion should be you get punished for being by yourself, and if you're grouped together with another person, Kha'Zix shouldn't be able to kill you as easily. And right now, it doesn't really feel like Kha'Zix has that problem. Let's be real. So what did they decide to do? They nerfed the bonus AD ratio of his claws by 0.2. Pretty good nerf. Pretty good. And they evolve cooldown refund is by 15%. Also good nerf. So they really want to punish you for not getting isolated, and they're lowering his overall damage. Good step in the right direction. I think in terms of like top 3 bans, it's like what? Rengar, Camille, LeBlanc in competitive play. And Kha'Zix is kind of like the 4th OP champion alongside like Varus, who gets first picked a lot on blue side, because playing Kha'Zix against like all the other non-Kha'Zix champions that aren't Rengar is pretty bad for the other jungler. And so definitely if they're nerfing the top 3, Kha'Zix needs to be toned down as well. I do think that they could have hit him a little bit harder, but I'll take what I can get in this situation. He's still going to get picked. Let me put it that way. I don't think in any of the nerfs so far, like, nerfed the champion out of competitive viability. All of these champions will still get picked. And I guess that's maybe a little bit surprising, because usually the way I see how Riot does buffs and nerfs is that if they want to fix a champion, they nerf him to the point where he's like, they do it all at once. But these seem like way more gradual nerfs over time, which is, I guess, maybe a little bit surprising. Different than what I usually expect from Riot balance philosophy. So LeBlanc, okay, this champion is way too good. She does just way too much damage early game, and it's very consistent to do that type of damage, on top of the fact that she can relatively wave clear fine. She may be one of the worst of the top 3 OPs, but she's still really problematic because she crowds out the champions that aren't already super OP. So like you may be able to play like, let's say, Ryze, or like maybe some pocket picks like Caston and Zed into her, and maybe you'll be able to play Corki, but all the other champions can't be played into LeBlanc. She's like a champion that like literally oppresses down a lot of the meta by being that strong. Now late game she's not very good. I think that's a good thing, because if your strength on this champion is going to be, you're going to be a very strong early game champion, you shouldn't also be a very strong late game champion with like good wave clear, good roaming, all of the stuff that she has in her kit. However, it seems like her early game is too good at the time, and so I think like a good nerf would be to somehow nerf her early game but keep her late game intact. What did they decide to do with her? They nerfed passive damage early at early levels. It's only by 10. This isn't gonna do anything. If you're telling me that LeBlanc loses 10 damage in her overall all-in rotation, like that's not gonna tell me anything. Like I don't think this was enough. I think that they should have probably considered taking these like lower base damage nerfs more, like and like extending them across like the rest of her kit. I think that usually to kill a champion, LeBlanc needs 2 passive rotations, give or take, and so you lose 20 damage off the full rotation. It's all of these changes are like a step in the right direction, right? But especially this one, it just doesn't seem like it's not. She's still gonna get ban picked. Like this is like nothing in terms of her relative balance. I do think, though, for a level 7 to 13, that she took a large hit in terms of her mid-game. 40 damage off this is pretty good. And it does increase to something like 20 damage off her level 3. I guess this is exactly what I'm looking for. I just worried that it's not enough, because the champion itself just feels very like way too good early game. I expected there to be more than just like a 20 damage nerf. However, 20 damage in terms of base value is relatively high. Oh, in the end, I think she's still gonna get picked a lot, but I think she's gonna get picked a lot. What do I say about everything else? Step in the right direction. I think this is a good way to nerf her. I just worry that it's not enough. All right, let's keep going. Malzahar. So what is the problem with this champion? This champion is a mage that's the like most contested support pick in the game, and the reason is because Voidlings do way too much damage, essentially. So the Voidlings hit, and you can't kill them fast enough unless you're playing a champion with auto resets like whatchamacallit, Taric or Lulu, and he's just really good at creating picks mid game. Like I don't think Malzahar should be a support and should be the highest priority support in the game. So where can they tone this down? They can make it so Voidling damage is just too much, and essentially, if they cast two Voidlings on you, you have to run. You can't ever fight with the Voidlings on you, even if they're low health, because Voidlings actually do just too much, and they multiply. So they'll just gonna their damage is gonna be like multiply after you standing still trying to hit the other AD or the other support. It needs to be nerfed in some way, shape, or form. Hopefully in a way that doesn't nerf mid lane Malzahar, but I don't think that's possible. So we're taking steps to reduce aggravation. So 0.3 seconds after cast, Voidling spawn time. Okay, the 0.3 means you can't use it as reliably to block skill shots. I think it's really nice because if you ever played like the Blitz matchup against Malz or the Thresh matchup, and you could very easily block the skill shot hooks from those respective champions because Malzahar Voidling automatically spawns. 0.3 5 seconds means that at least if you have a margin to mess up and they can hook you if you're not reacting fast enough. I like the change, as well as making it slower to be able to hit the character because it doesn't spawn instantly. Cooldown between casts is 1 second, so you can't use both of them instantly. And past 600 distance, they move 10% slower for every 100% distance they are. Okay, so they can't chase you down the lane. I like it. I think that these nerfs are decent enough to make Malzahar not super OP. I doubt he hasn't been like a super high priority pick. He's still really, really good, but he's being dealt with like more and more in terms of like not being super high priority in terms of in the draft, or at least in terms of bans. I think that these changes will mean that he lowers himself a little bit more to where other supports can match him better. And these are the nerfs where I'm just like, yes, he's definitely going to fall from like the S tier into like a tier where he's still good, but not like stupidly OP. The damage nerfs don't exist, but I think especially with the cooldown between casts, like they can't upfront the damage so much. It is possible that he's still gonna be strong, and the overall patch essentially the name of the patch is like, we're not looking to nerf these champions to the ground, but just enough to where they aren't first ban, first pick in games. And I think that these nerfs make his laning a little bit more tolerable. Do I still think he's going to get pick support? Yes. Do I still think he's like a top 6 support? Probably. Yeah. But do I still think he's going to be picked competitively? Probably yes. So, but they nerfed him from a point where I think that he's not as problematic as he used to be. And so I think he's in an okay spot. We'll see. Maybe he's still too strong, but this is something where I don't play much Malzahar support, so it's harder for me to judge. Even in ranked, I don't see it as much as I would expect. I'm gonna keep going. Rengar. Oh my god, whew. This champion is so good. He is a snowbally jungler that is also tanky. You can't CC him. He has mobility-based options and has CC. So, and his initiation range is insane. So and he doesn't jungle even that slow. Like, he's a good jungler too. So this is the S tier jungler pick, the best jungle pick in the game. Please nerf this champion. So I would be happy with the nerfs to almost any part of his kit. The CC reduction, the damage, longer cooldown on like his ulti ability, anything. Like, just give me something. I would want to see this champion nerf like pretty hard. Okay, so they're making it so that his Q no longer gives immunity. Great, excellent. They're making it so his camouflage duration isn't insanely long. Great. I don't think you should. This is a good example of something that's really frustrating. Rengar uses his ult to zone. So what ends up happening is, as you siege, Rengar just ultis, especially late game, mid late game. He ultis and then he just like sits there. And he's using it to zone you for like 15 to 20 seconds, 15 to 30 seconds. I always thought that was really stupid. Like, why is Rengar able to have an ulti duration that's this long? Like, his ulti is very powerful, and before, you can get punished for not using it immediately. Now, it lasts 30 seconds. Like, 30 seconds is enough for a Rengar player to cover from Fountain to like halfway through the map. If not a little bit more. Fountain to like almost tier 2. So, I'm not I'm happy that they nerfed that. That's such a big, like, such an annoying problem with the champion. I'm glad they nerfed the dash distance on Savagery. It technically means that the overall damage distance got nerfed maybe a little bit, and it got nerfed by 1/4. So, I mean, I like that a lot. And the fact that he can be CC'd. He still has the cleanse, but no longer is Olaf ulti. And that's huge. It means that, like, Rengar players actually have to, like, try to ignore CC. It used to be the Rengar just jumps on you and just instantly empowers an immunity. It doesn't care because it lasts like a full 1.5 seconds, because he'll either kill you in the 1.5 seconds or you'll have to flash away. And it's super frustrating because, especially if you went bot lane, like, he would instantly immune Janna ulti and Janna Nado even without predicting it. He didn't have to predict it. He just did it, and you just had to wait, and you're like, there's not much counterplay here. Helps out a lot into making Rengar more balanced. I like it. I like it a lot. He is still going to be a very, very good jungler. But he might be left up finally after some situations to where you'll see it more in draft. Especially in the situation where you can lock him down more. This is not enough to make him, to lower him from, like, his, like, throne. He's still going to be top 4 junglers in the game. But hopefully the distance shortened. Might not be permaban. I feel like that's my statement for every one of these champions. Okay, Rengar might not be permaban. Malzahar still good, but might not be the best pick. LeBlanc might not get permaban. Probably still gonna get permaban. Kha'Zix still a top 4 jungle champ, but, like, might not get banned or picked instantly. Camille is gonna get banned and picked, and she's still going to be, like, one of the best top players. So, like, every single champion I've talked about so far, I'm just like, they didn't nerf them super hard to the point where I don't think they're, like, not top 4 in their respective positions. All right, let's keep going. So, Tristana. Okay, Triss sucks right now. The only time where I really see a lot of Tristana play is, I think, in metas where you can stall out to 2 or 3 items consistently, where you don't have to have much impact don't have to have a lot of AD impact up until then. So champions like Jinx, champions like Tristana, champions like any other hyper carry that I'm missing tend to struggle right now in the current meta because early game is so important. Like, laning is so important, and it's not like Triss laning isn't super good. Triss typically has, like, a spike in laning, like 1 to 6, and then it goes down during her 2 item period. It goes back up during 3, 4. But I just don't think. She needs some help right now. She just can't match up against any of the ADs. I think generally the only time you ever used to pick Triss competitively was a strict counter pick to Kalista. Back when Kalista was super meta, Triss just had, like, the best way to deal with Kalista because it was point and click guaranteed damage. What did they decide to do? They increased the rapid fire damage or duration by, what is that, 20%, give or take? No, it's a lot more. It's like 40% from her old one. That's pretty good. That's a nice buff for her to have. It means that she can just do, like, her damage has a lot more. She can do more damage in the time that her rapid fire or technical, like, that's like her damage steroid is available. I like it. It's good. It's not gonna make her picked, but it's good. I'm much more. I like the buffs like this toward champions that don't see much play. I much prefer there to be. In terms of balance, I don't want there to be an S tier and an F tier. I'd much prefer there to be, like, an S tier to, like, a C tier. So all the champions are F and below, who are just, like, really bad in a bunch of different ways, get buffed up to the point where they're, like, good and maybe, like, niche in, like, very specific ways. And generally, I prefer that type of champion balance over to everything else. So buffing champions that don't see much play are very, very weak right now, or, like, this is the type of stuff that I want to see more of, because this makes it so that, like, maybe she's not, like, complete garbage, but she's garbage in, like, 90% of situations. And, like, a couple more buffs toward, like, champions like this, you'd be surprised how many other champions will see play just with a couple buffs here and there. Vi. This champion has seen a lot of dominance in solo queue because it's point and click, guaranteed CC. I don't think she's that good. In terms of competitive, like, I don't really care about her at all. And in solo queue, she can go off because if she snowballs, she's really, really strong. But I don't necessarily think that she needs nerfs. And then what did they decide to do with her? They nerfed her base movement speed and her base attack speed. Base attack speed nerfs are pretty important because they mean that every attack speed item that you buy on the champion scales worse with her kit. I think it also means that her steroid on her W scales worse with her overall kit. So I think almost every Vi right now goes Trinity into like tank items, and it is like a decent nerf. This isn't gonna do anything to her overall, but it just means that she doesn't scale as well as she could before, and she's moves slightly slower. I'll take it. I don't think it matters too much in terms of these nerfs. Vladimir, this champion sucks right now. They nerfed him too hard in the point that he can't. The problem I see with Vladimir is he's very similar to old Yorick. Vladimir is a champion that's been like in limbo in terms of he's impossible to balance. Either because what ends up happening is either you can sustain, you can out sustain every champion in the game, and you're the most broken mid laner or one of the best mid laners in the game, or you can't, and they can poke you down. They can outpoke your sustain, or their all in just kills you. And so either you're very, very relevant, you're super important, or you don't exist because you can't even touch a creep wave because your relative range isn't that high. And so buffing this champion, just like this champion in general, is just hard to balance. So what did they decide to do? They buffed his basic attack damage and his basic missile speed so he can last it better with autos. Okay, that's not bad. And they buffed his Q to where he has slightly more AP ratio, damage increased slightly, and the Crimson Rush bonus damage got decreased. So outside of his Crimson Rush, he does more damage. Okay, I think these are buffs, sure, for Vladimir, but he's not going to see much play in terms of competitive. In terms of like him matching up against a lot of the current meta mid laners, I don't really see it either. He may have niche matchups where he's not bad in. Stuff like Zed, once he gets like an item or two, is really hard to deal with Vlad. And a lot of the shorter range matches of Vlad can tend to bully. And matchups like Echo, Vlad was always super, super good into the Echo matchup. So right now, he's probably just like a very niche pick. I don't think he's like super, super bad, but against all the meta mid laners, he doesn't lane very well. Zyra, yeah, this champ is disgusting for bot lane. She's one of the best champs in the game. It should say something that a lot of the bot lane support meta is literally, okay, did they pick Zyra? If they did, is MF up? And if the answer is no to MF, you're like, we lost. Crap. Because the only technical counter pick to Zyra support right now is Misfortune. And so like bot lane's in like kind of a rock paper scissors where it's like, okay, did they pick Mouse? Do we have Zyra or MF? If not, or Taric. If not, like we have to do some like weird thing where we pick like Lulu or maybe Kench even. And if it's Zyra, it's like, okay, do we have MF? And if they pick MF, you can pick like more all-in champions. And there's like kind of variable stuff where you pick Thresh and get jungle camped and he can do well against some of the other stuff. But Zyra is definitely a champion that does way too much damage for effective kit. What happens? They removed the rule that told her plants to automatically target nearby champions instead of the close. Oh, that's so nice. It means that her immediate. It used to be that if you were next to the plant, the range minion, it would automatically hit you even if you weren't the first target. But that's like so important that it doesn't hit you because you can just use the minion range. You can stand like in between minions to make it so the plant doesn't automatically target you. Whew, that's so nice. I like it. And I like the mana cost buffs because she really shouldn't be able. Like I have a problem with the fact that she can miss her Q on the enemy champion, make plants out of it, and have the plants kill you. Like do so much damage that it's like she didn't miss the trade. And so any kind of nerfs toward that regard are much better. She's still going to be really good. Don't get me wrong, but thank God. Practice Tool is okay. Practice Tool is being put out in all regions for the updated client. The problem I have with the Practice Tool is similar to the same problem I have with replays. So the new replays are in the new client as well. But from all extents and purposes, I can't watch replays. I can't use the Practice Tool while I'm in queue. That's like the biggest thing because what do I want to do in queue? I either have to play queue games, I interact with chat. Sometimes chat's like not very quick, or sometimes like they ask the same questions. I don't really need to talk too much about it, and I want to just practice champions while I'm waiting for the next game to start. But that doesn't seem to be available. I really wish it was possible to like watch replays or use the practice tool while I'm waiting queue, and I think that would like increase the usage of these relative tools by a huge amount. The queue problem exists for 0.1% of the league player base. All right, maybe you're right. Maybe it's like a first world problem for me, but at least for me, I would use a practice tool a lot more if I could do it that way. Skin names and scoreboard. Hovering over a player's scoreboard now shows the name of their skin. Completely irrelevant to me. League client update. I don't use this client at the moment. I'll switch to it pretty soon, probably. When it gets out of beta, I'll end up switching when they force me to switch. I'm not going to go over it because I don't currently use the new client. Q health updates. Okay, that's nothing. Rotating game modes. I don't do other game modes. And a lot of bug fixes, which generally I don't go over because typically in these bug fixes, there's like 1 out of 20 that's relevant. So overall, how do I rate the new patch? I think that this is like ideally the patch that I wish came out at the first week of competitive play, because these are the nerfs where you're like, I don't know if it'll affect the overall competitive scene as much as I would want it. And so this is what happened. You release this patch right before the season starts, week 1, and then you're given like 2 weeks to see, okay, well, where did this champion go? Where did this champion go? Where did this champion go? Unfortunately, I think pro play is still going to be a little bit like wonky in terms of balance. And I think they're going to need at least another patch to be able to balance out a lot of the champions that they got nerfed. Like, I still think they hit almost all of the relevant champions that they need to hit in terms of nerfs this game, or this competitive patch. But I worry that it wasn't enough, and they won't know, and they typically won't update for like a couple weeks. So it usually what happens is they wait about a 1 patch period cycle to be able to update again, and that worries me because it could be even like, if what I suspect is true, Camille's still ban pick, and I had to wait another month before she gets balanced again. And I hope that it doesn't take that long. I hope that instead they decide to do like in the next patch period, which is in 2 weeks, okay, Camille's still too good, let's nerf her again. I hope that's what I see. But I suspect that it might not be the case. Okay, anyways, thank you guys for watching, and that's my overall patch preview. Oh, and thank you, Valkyrie, for the host. I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and play some ads, and I'm going to go get into my solo queue game.